You're probably playing Battlefield 6 wrong. Battlefield 6 is taking the world by storm, but so many players have no idea what they're doing because this game has a lot of nuance, and if you get it wrong, you will suck, even if you're not that bad at gaming. So what we're going to be doing today is going into some tips and tricks to make you better at Battlefield 6. From instant headshots to the right guns, to why you shouldn't be trying to Call of Duty a game that is not like Call of Duty. Let's just get right into it. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I'm not going to have any ad reads. I'm not going to waste your time. So first things first, the rangefinder. If you're playing sniper, one thing that you want on your sniper is a rangefinder. We're going to go into why you should never use a sniper class with anything other than recon, but rangefinder, that's what you need. You want the rangefinder on your gun because using the rangefinder, you can get instant headshots. What am I talking about here? What I'm talking about is bullet drop. So in a game like Battlefield, bullets tend to be realistic. Not only are you aiming from the actual gun rather than your head like other games, you have bullet drop, which means if a person is 300 meters away or 300 feet away, that bullet needs to drop to get to them. So you've got to aim over their head. With the rangefinder, you don't have to do that anymore. The rangefinder will center your gun on someone's head. Now, we're going to take it one step further. If you have the rangefinder equipped, what you can do is go to your settings. This is for mouse and keyboard, but you can do the same thing for controller. You go to infantry passenger keybinds, and then if you go down to rangefinder 0 div zoom, set that to your fire key. And what's going to happen now is when you press fire, the rangefinder is going to 0 to whatever you're aiming at, and then your gun's going to instantly fire. What this means is whenever your crosshairs are on, that is where you are going to hit, and it does not matter how far away it is. This is an insanely overpowered hack. If you use this, they're probably gonna patch this at some point, but if you use this, you will start getting headshots that you never thought you could get. In addition to that steady scope, I like to do that so anytime I aim, my scope is going to be steady. With the sniper rifle, and we're going to go over something with other guns too. With the sniper rifle, when you aim in, there's a glint to your gun, just like most games have, which means you stand out. We're going to go over firing later because a lot of people are getting that wrong too, and that's with all guns. But with the sniper rifle, when you zoom in, there's a glint to your gun. So if you're always zoomed, there's going to be that glint to the enemy team, and they're going to be able to focus on you a lot quicker. The way you want to do it is you want to zoom in once you see someone, fire, and then get out of there right away. So the way you want to do that is set your hotkeys like this: rangefinder 0 div zoomed and steady scope for your zoom. Now, let's get into some other settings that are going to be an immense help to you. First off, let's go into the graphics. If you go into the graphics, first of all, your field of view, you should be setting that to 120. That gives you it gives you a better feel of your surroundings. For third-person vehicle view, you want that to be set all the way up too. It's just going to make things feel a lot better. Now, when it comes to weapon motion blur, set that all the way down. World motion blur, set that all the way down. Camera shake, you want to set that to 50. And you're going to notice a lot of this stuff is going to be on. Chromatic abrasion, you're going to turn that off. Vinaigrette, you're going to turn that off. Film grain, you're going to turn that off. Enable to reduce the amount of camera movement when sprinting in first person, you want to turn that on. These settings are just going to make the game feel a lot better to you, and it's going to make the game so much easier to play. It's going to get rid of a lot of the BS that's very cinematic, but also makes things just feel wrong. It's going to get rid of a lot of the stuff that's very cinematic, but makes the game a lot harder to play. Now, let's go into the HUD, the crosshairs, and everything like that, because there's some really important settings that need to be changed here. First off, if you look, you can change the opacity, the size, and so many different settings in this game. So, one thing that you want to do is you've got this hit color and headshot color. You want to change the headshot color. Just make it like a little slightly different, right? Like I like to use red because that just like indicates that it was like a boom headshot. The reason I do that is because if you get a headshot, you want it to flash, because right now you know that you have an advantage against the person you're playing. You did a headshot, you got more damage on them, you should probably continue that engagement. There's hit indicators numbers too, but the problem with those is it's a lot harder to read a number than it is to just see a headshot and know that you've got an advantage. Also in the HUD, there's some advanced settings that we need to go into. So first things first, when you get your mini-map, I like to keep that small. You can make that bigger if you want. I also like to turn the opacity just down a little bit so you can sort of see what's going on rather than have that mini-map blocking a little bit of your screen. All this stuff I just left alone. One big thing though that I recommend everybody changes is if you go out to this, you go down to your HUD icons. What I would recommend doing is if you go down to your friendly icons, your objective icons, is you scale those down. The reason for this is generally you do know where the objective is. It's not something that's super important to you, so anything that isn't that important, you want to scale it down and make it a little bit more opaque. And when zoomed in, I set that to 0 because I don't think that should matter. With occluded, I'm going to set that down to 64 or 52. Friendly icons, I do the same thing. It does matter where my friends are, so I'm going to turn this to 70, so it's a little bit bigger than objective icons, but it doesn't matter as much as the enemy. I like this not to be opaque at all. I like this to be sort of not there if I'm zoomed in. If I zoomed in, I'm sure I'm just zooming in on someone, and it doesn't matter where the friends are. I just want to shoot whoever I'm shooting at. Although I would leave this a little bit opaque so you can see if you're shooting at a friend. Revive icons, I leave that at 100 if you're playing medic. I'd recommend bumping that up to 150 just so that you can see when someone is down. And this is going to overpower the friendly icons too because this scales down. Also make sure your opacity is all the way up for that. For squad icons, I leave that alone because it is nice to know where the squad is. And for enemy icons, I bump that all the way up to 150. What this means is the enemy is going to pop a lot more than anything else on the map. And that matters because where your enemy is a thing that you always need to be cognizant of. So this should be the most important thing. Everything else, you should tone it down. And if you're wondering what settings I used and all that, it doesn't need to be perfect. As long as you tone everything down a little bit, you tone the right things up, you're going to be good to go. Now, let's go into the crosshairs. This is the last thing in the settings that we're going to change, and then we're going to get into some actually very cool stuff. So if you go down to crosshairs and indicators, you can actually change your crosshair color. Now, what I find is if you look at the crosshairs, there's a lot of white in this game. There's a lot of things that you're looking at that are white, and they're going to sort of make those crosshairs fade out a little bit. So you can turn the intensity up. That is going to help. What I like to do is make my crosshairs a very unique color. And this is going to annoy some people. Make it like a blue, a purple, something that doesn't show up as much in the game. Blue really pops, and that's going to just make it feel, it's going to make things a lot more obvious where your crosshairs are aimed. And that's what I like. I want my crosshairs to be very obvious. I want to know where I'm aiming them. And just look at that bright, right? Like, look at the difference between the bright here and the bright that was white. This is just brights right here where it's showing the intensity. There's a big difference. White on white doesn't show up as much as blue on white. And there's a lot less blue in this game than there is white. Some people will want it to be red or something like that, but that sort of, it gets in the way of seeing enemies, whereas blue, it's a good setting. Set it to blue or purple or something like that, and the game's going to run a lot better for you. Now, let's get into loadouts because this is one that a lot of people do sleep on, and I see so many people doing this wrong. There's a ton of cool guns in this game. Everybody wants to use the guns with their class of choice, but you shouldn't be doing that. So, in Battlefield 6, there's recoil and there's bloom. Bloom is just basically it's this concept of just random shots. So every time you shoot, your shots have a chance of not being on target. Recoil, if you master it, you can get over that, right? You can reduce recoil, and that's great, but you can also learn how to move your mouse to reduce recoil. That's what some of the best players in the game do. It's not something I'm capable of doing, but a lot of really good players do that. And if you're able to do that, hats off to you. What a lot of people mess up, though, when they're setting up classes is they'll use a class that they shouldn't be using. For instance, if I use an assault rifle with this class, that would be horrible. That would be horrible. And the reason for that is because there's a bloom that's added if you're using a gun that isn't optimal for your class. So what you're going to find is for assault, you want to be using either the assault rifle or you want to use one of the neutral classes. That would be one of the classes I don't mention, like a carbine, okay? Now, for the support, you want to be using a LMG. You can see here that like support icon by the LMG. That means that is a gun that you should be using with the LMG. Or that's a class that you should be using with the LMG. For recon, that's going to be the sniper rifles, obviously. And then for, did I miss engineer? For engineer, you should be using the SMG. So what that means, the carbine, the DMR, and the shotguns can be used by any class. But if I decide to use an assault rifle with my recon class, that assault rifle is going to have extra bloom added to it because I'm using it with the wrong class. And what that means is I'm going to miss more shots. It does not matter how good you are. Bloom is one of those things that will affect, it's going to affect your shooting no matter what. You can't overcome it. You can use attachments, you can customize your guns, and there's a ton of guides on that. I'm probably going to put out some, but you can't be just using the right gun with the right class. Additionally, let's talk about the classes because there's some things that people miss. So first off, with recon, you've got a recon drone, you've got a mine, you've got proximity detectors. Make sure you use those. And while we're talking about melee, if you want to go through some walls, which is sort of really cool if you want to get those cool plays, use the sledgehammer. If you want to get some nice kills, use the combat knife. And if you want to run fast, use the combat knife. What you can do is you can hold your knife button, and it's going to equip the knife, and now your character is going to be able to run faster. Your character's speed is based on what they're holding. If you're holding a gun, you run slower than if you're holding a pistol, and if you're holding a knife, you run the fastest of all. If you're going into an objective, there's no enemies around, use those knives. If there's enemies, don't do it, but you get what I'm saying. In addition to this, when we talk about different classes, with support, you've got to make sure that you always use your defibrillators. The reason that these are so important is because it basically means you can instant revive people. And another overpowered aspect of the support class is the smoke grenade. So no other class has a smoke grenade, and the nice thing about the smoke grenade is when you throw it, not only does it obscure the enemy's view, it also de-hit markers your team. So anytime, this is important, with the hit marker, anytime you fire, anytime you're spotted, there's a hit marker that will appear above your head to the enemy team. A lot of people don't know this. Anytime you fire, it appears. So if you shoot your gun, that marker appears. It just pops in, pops out, pops in, pops out. And then that's going to draw the enemy to you. Once they've got you in their sights, now you're going to appear to the whole enemy team for a period of time. If you want to help your team as a medic, make sure you throw your smoke grenades, because what this means is all of those tags are going to disappear for the other enemy team. And this also means that your players are going to be able to fire or do whatever they do without being tagged to the enemy team between them and the smoke. It's a really overpowered tool, and I don't see enough medics using it. When it comes to engineer, an important thing to know with engineer, obviously they're just really good at taking out tanks. A cool thing you can do is get under tanks, but I'm sure a lot of you have seen that clip. And then when it comes to something like this, the assault class, another thing to keep in mind is that you do have some really cool things that you can do with secondary classes and with gadgets. So you have this assault ladder. You can use that to get into locations that you wouldn't be able to get into otherwise. Once players have a better idea of how the map works, this is going to be key, because what's going to happen is you can use that ramp to get access to a window or to a location that players wouldn't expect you to have access to. And you can also use that to get behind people and make some really cool plays. So now, enough about the classes. Let's dive into some other things that sort of matter a lot with this game. What I see a lot of people missing is just how to play the game in general. With Battlefield 6, you want to stay with your team. This is why squads are super important. The reason you have squads is because people can spawn on you. You play with your squad, you're going to do better. You get extra points, everything like that. But that also should show you how this game works in general. It's a huge team. You need to work with your team. You should be pushing the lineup together, not trying to flank the enemy team, unless you're flanking with your whole squad. If as a solo player you are flanking, you are failing your team. The reason for this is simple. It's because the way the game works, if you think about how those hit icons pop up, if you think about Bloom, if you think about everything like that, the second you take a shot, you are going to be identified to the enemy team. The second they focus on you, you're going to be identified even more, and it's going to follow you. And you need a team with you to try and help you get de-identified. You need a medic dropping smokes. You need a sniper trying to free you up so that you can get somewhere. You need assault to just push forward, and you need the engineer in case there's a tank. And if you're playing engineer in a class that doesn't really, or in a map that doesn't really have vehicles, you might be doing it wrong. But you need all those teammates to work together. If you're trying to solo it, you are failing. You're not Shroud, or, I mean, Shroud, if you're watching, shout out to you, you're awesome. But you're not Shroud, most likely. Like 99.999% chance. So you're not this type of player that can just go on and do something amazing. And it's not Call of Duty where you can take on a whole team. There's 32 players that are on the enemy team. Do you really think you can take all 32 of them out? And if the answer to that is yes, then you're probably one of those people who fails an IQ test because you forget your name. And one final tip related to movement, and this is sort of a cool one. If you are running and then you crouch down, you get a little bit of a speed boost to your crouch. So running to crouch, your crouch is going to move a little bit faster for a bit of time, whereas just crouching and moving is going to be a little bit slower. This is nice because if you're looking to get into cover and the cover's just a little bit away, you can run halfway or most of the way to the cover, hit the crouch button, and get in a little bit lower. It's nice because it does throw off the enemy teams. It doesn't slow you down too much, and it will allow things to just flow smoother for you. The movement in this game isn't that hard to master. Again, this isn't Call of Duty, but there's a few little tricks like that if you do master them, it's going to make the game flow a lot easier, and it's going to make you survive a lot more situations. Anyways, that's all I've got today for tips that are related to Black Ops 6. If you want more guides like this, or if there's something that you've got that I missed, make sure you post down below. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate all the support everybody's been giving my channel. So until next time, peace.